Hello. Today I'm going to go through the second half of my thesis, which is the physical component itself. As you can see here, it's a smart mirror, or smart emotional recognition facial system mirror. um, and this is built up of a couple of different things, in which I'll go in detail with you. So this here that imitates the mirror glass, this is 3mm thick acrylic, and it's a two-way glass kind of system though. It's two-way, you couldn't call it glass, but two-way acrylic, which basically means that based on whichever direction the light is passing through, that is where the reflection is going to be. So behind this, because there's currently no light, it's not displaying anything. However, of course, facing me, it's light. But once light comes from the opposite direction, that will then pass through, and won't show you what's will show you what's behind it, but in a more clear view. And you'll see in a minute how I emulated that. And this here, so this frame that you see all around the outside, this is an infrared frame. And what that basically means is that one side, so imagine this side now shoots infrared lasers down to the other side, and the other side catches it. And when I put my finger in place, blocking the signal, blocking the infrared light going through, that's when it understands that this is the place it's been interrupted. This is where the user is touching. And that's how it calculates the touch screen. So that's how I then made my monitor touch screen. And in behind it, then you see the monitor itself. Now it's quite dirty, and it's all held in together. So back to here. Now, as you see, the whole frame is wooden, and I created it myself, completely from scratch. I'm not a carpenter, give me a little bit of a break, but I did my best. All the angles are at 45 degrees. It's put together with glue and with nails. And just to demonstrate that, the outer frame, I left this piece off, or I took it off anyway, so I could demonstrate it. If I take it off here, you can see the screws in behind. And then in behind that, you can see where the glue was placed. So I got myself a glue gun as well, just so I could keep everything nice and tight. Now, and if I was turning it on, so as I said, after everything, all the components together, these are all hooked up to this here, which is a Raspberry Pi. And it's in its case, and this is basically a mini computer, and this is controlling the entire thing. I did have a look at Arduino as well. So I do have an Arduino kit here. And Arduino was more of a single board processor, whereas the Raspberry Pi itself is a computer. Imagine it can do anything a computer can do. Of course, maybe some computers are a lot stronger processing speed, but even so, these are very strong for mini computers. And just to give you a look inside, give me one sec. So this is what the inside looks like. These components here, so this one, and this one. So these are for heatsink, and these are basically then what's making sure that the board doesn't overheat and it's able to function correctly. These two here are my micro SSDs, or my micro HDMI cables. So I have two of them there, and as you can see, one's plugged in, that's plugged into the monitor in the back. This here is the power cord for the Raspberry Pi itself. So this is a USB-C. These later on, these were used to connect the camera. At the moment, I'm just using a HDMI cable for a camera, which I'll show in a minute. But these are if you want to use the Raspberry Pi camera itself. And although I was using it at one stage, as you can see, the cord for it was quite small. So this would be where the camera would have been facing outwards. And it would have meant in the mirror itself, I would have had to cut in an entire section for this board to be public facing. And I didn't think it would look as well if I had a big black box placed somewhere here. So I chose against it. However, I did test it to clarify. And yeah, so now I'll go into the startup phase. So when I turn it on, you see the light here turns to green and red, and the mirror itself will start to turn on. So once I tap, so if you see it, In the top left, there's a very faint, and it's gone off there. But it's basically showing that it's loading. And then here comes the mirror. So it's quite difficult to see with the reflection. You see if I darken the light. And as you see, now the smart mirror has turned into your computer interface. So I can do anything with it. As you can see, the mouse is following me. It's completely touchscreen, and that's, as I said, done with the infrared cameras. I can go into the SSH, which by clicking that up there, which I did with my finger. Open the SSH, move everything around. And as I said, this functions then basically just like a computer. So if I open up the web browser, I can show you it. It's exactly like what a computer would look like. I can go to Gmail, Web Store. And I could download whatever I'd like. So now I'm going to skip on and show you the actual project being run in this. So if I continue from here, I just connected up to my mouse and keyboard and placed the webcam at the top there. So if I demonstrate what will happen when I run. The code is starting up. As you can see, the reflection is still there, still functions as a mirror, which was the intention. And then you get your interface above. So as you can see, here's 1 frame, 2 frame. I explained this in the previous video, so I won't go too much detail in it. But I'll just demonstrate. Once it sees my face, it's capturing frames. Then it'll start to input the graph itself. And then based on my emotions, which of course it's very light reflective, but I had to dampen the lights. Or it's based on light, so it's very sensitive to light. But I had to dampen the lights just so you could see this better, because it's hard to come up on your phone. As you can see, everything functions exactly like it was meant to. So let me close this down and go into the last piece. Now, so the last thing I want to just go through is basically showing how when you turn to doing my project onto this smart mirror and the Raspberry Pi, it's a completely different operating system. It's no longer Windows. It's very similar to Linux. And I'm using a system called Raspbian, which is Raspberry Pi's generic or its most standard system. I could have used Noobs as well, which is NOOBS. And it stands for New Out of the Box System. And it's very simple. It's a very simplistic, simple, shows you what you can do. However, Raspbian itself is quite more advanced. It's not more advanced, but it's more generic to what a normal desktop would look like. So that's why I chose to go with Raspbian in the end. But what I do want to, as I was saying, I do want to show you is that to get even Visual Studio Code onto this system was an entire process. So if I go through all my codes here, you can see there was a lot. So I had to do everything through the SSH. I had to install Python, remove the old version, make sure it was using Python 3.9 as I was using some commands from the newer version. So a lot of that testing was going through and committing. And then I had to force it in as well. To actually open Visual Studio Code then as well, you would, or before I start that actually, installing Python and these other libraries like Anaconda, which I ended up having to use Miniconda instead of Anaconda. For the Raspberry Pi, Miniconda was the best go-to. But to get all that, you'd have to download these from a GitHub repository, and then you'd have to extract the files and then install them. So then if I show you then, to open up Visual Studio Code itself, I'd literally type into the system code. You see code written up there. Press play. Now, when it's opening Visual Studio, you see at the top, Visual Studio Code. Apologies, I thought something happened there. Similar to before, all my code's in here. I'm able to interact with it. I can click on a line, type away, although I don't want to do that. But similar to what you saw before. So that's the build up. As you can see, Miniconda is in there as well. These are all packages I was going through and had to go through. So I hope that clarifies it. Now, if I just turn this off quickly, shut down. Yes. So yeah, so that's it. As you can see, go back one more time. It does interact like a normal mirror, so which was my entire purpose. I wanted it so that even if the user at one stage didn't want to plug it in, didn't want anything on, didn't want no webcam access, you'd still have the exact same functionality as you would with any generic mirror. And the ultimate goal was for it to be like a virtual assistant that can be a bit more hands-on than email reminders and so forth. It's that understand your patterns, understand your goals, understand your emotions at certain states and what affects those emotions. So I hope that made sense, and thank you.